What's going down? This is your man Dante of Dante Records Music Group, and today I want to talk about compressors. When I was a mix engineer just starting out, I had no clue about what the parameters on a compressor did. I just did things until it sounded good, and I still do that today. I'm sure a lot of us do. But just understanding how a compressor works can make your workflow so much better. And so I'm gonna try to keep it simple, stupid for the beginner. And some of this may transfer to some of the more advanced people as well. I want to give you a simple way of looking at compression, how it works, understanding the mathematical portion of it, understanding what compressors can be used for what type of sources, whether it be a kick, snare, and so forth. And I want to do it pretty quick. All right. So let's get right into it. All right, let's jump into my DAW and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so check it out. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I got the Pro C2 compressor here, is the parameters, okay? These are the parameters. We got threshold, we got ratio, we got tack, release, and some compressors have hard and soft knee. And let's just talk about those for now. So the threshold, if you look here at this compressor, this threshold has a horizontal line that runs from left to right, okay? And so basically what the threshold is this line. It's like a ceiling. And so this is where compression starts. Sounds above this threshold right here gets compressed. So anything that goes above this threshold starts to get compressed. Let me put this back to a 1-to-1. So when this signal right here goes above this threshold, it's actually starting to get compressed. However, nothing's happening right now, and there's a reason for that. And I'll explain that to you in a minute. So then we got the ratio, right? This determines how much compression is applied once the signal exceeds the threshold. So once the signal goes above this, you got a 1-to-1. So every 1 dB, the signal is reduced by 1 dB. And so ain't nothing really happening here. And I'll show you the math in a minute and how it all works, so you can really get a good understanding of what I'm talking about. All right, so the speed, right? The speed at which a compressor begins after the signal has exceeded the threshold. Now I keep saying that, right? It exceeded the threshold. Ratio, it exceeded the threshold. Attack, it exceeded the threshold. Now, when I talk about release, it's the time it takes for the compressor to stop compressing after the signal drops below the threshold. All right. So once it drops below, now how fast do I want it to stop compressing? Okay. And that's what your release time is there for. Once it goes below, when do I stop? Or do I keep going? So you just have to play around with it. And one of the most important things that you have in your toolbox or your toolkit is your ears, buddy. That's what I'm talking about. Your ears. Some people have better ears. Some people ears hear what they hear. And how do you improve your hearing? By listening to good mixes. Okay. All right. So at this point, I'm going to take you over to my slide that I put together so you guys can see the mathematical equation and at each ratio, what's taking place. Okay. And you'll see here in a minute. Now, one thing I didn't touch before I move forward is the knee. Hard knee, the compressor kicks in quickly, okay? And it squashes the signal as it surpasses the threshold. Now, the soft knee is just the opposite. It's very gentle, ready? It's very gentle. And it's good to glue things together. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Now, this has a range on it. Most compressors, you may not find that. So I probably won't even jump into that. So let me just keep moving. All right, let's go. All right, so here's a slide I put together. We talk about the input signal. So that's how loud things are coming into the compressor. Here you got reduction. So we got gain reduction right here. And then we have our threshold in the red. That's like the ceiling. All right, once things pass this, compression starts to begin. However, if you notice here, one important thing is that with a 1-to-1 ratio, no compression is happening, okay? No compression is happening. And what I'll do is I'll go back and demonstrate that real quick. Right now, I got my ratio at 1-to-1. My incoming signal is at a -10 dB, all right? My threshold's at 20. Fast attack, fast release. Let's play the music, see what happens. And so focus here, right here, in the red, right here. Now this is your gain reduction. So let's take a look. Also, as this plays, notice the inputs and outputs. They're the same. Nothing's happening. Okay? All right, so let's go back. Nothing's happening. All right, so we got a 2-to-1. All right, 2-to-1 ratio. This controls dynamics smoothly without affecting the tone or punch of the source. All right, so here with this input of negative 10 dB, threshold of negative 20 dB, the gain reduction is 5 dB, okay, which gives you an output signal of negative 15 dB. So I'm gonna have to increase my gain if I want the volume of that audio signal to be the same. All right, sometimes I rarely use auto gain, but if I want that audio signal to be the same on my output, I'm gonna have to increase my makeup gain, and that's what that knob's for, okay? But let me show you this equation and tell you and show you that it works, okay? I'm gonna show you that this equation works. Let me get my calculator real quick. I'm moving real fast because I don't want this video to be very long. So to get the output, right? So we take the input, which is negative 10, right? Let's go. Stop talking. Just do it. We got, and we minus the threshold, right? Minus, and the threshold is 20, negative 20 dB. That equals 10. Divided by the ratio is 2-to-1, right? So we divide it, 2. So we got 5. Then we take that and we add it to the threshold. So plus 20 dB. We got negative 15. This is our output, right? So that's what we got as far as output. Now to get the gain reduction, we take the output minus the input, all right? So here we go. So we're gonna minus, we got 10, boom, there it is, gain reduction. That's how it works. That's the mathematical portion. And if you look back, as I'm getting ready to skip back to the DAW, I'm gonna show you that this is pretty much on point as what I'm telling you. Back to the DAW, let's go. All right, so let's go to a 2-to-1. All right, 2-to-1. Still soft knee and everything, fast attack, fast release, because that's the only way it's really gonna line up like it should, okay? So let's hit play. Look here, negative 5, gain reduction. Look at our output, right? It's gonna change, right? It's different. So here's the input right here, signal, output, way down here, right? So we lost about 5 dB of output, all right? Everybody tracking? I know you're tracking because you're a smart bunch. I know you're tracking. All right, so 3-to-1, same thing. You already seen the math. I'm just gonna give you what a 3-to-1 in my definition. It applies moderate amount of control, still maintains the natural dynamics of your source, and that's important sometimes. Sometimes you wanna mud things up, make things grimy, you know? Then we got 4-to-1, applies a medium amount of control, punch, loudness, and tone changes slightly. It's gonna be a little bit of change there, okay? And you can adjust, you can impact this also even at a 4-to-1 by the attack time, by the release time. These parameters also can affect the tone and loudness and punch and the change in your source, okay? So then we got a 6-to-1, applies a medium hard amount of control, but the punch, loudness, and the tone is gonna change even more, okay? Just keep that in mind. Now you got a 10-to-1. Now some people may say, oh, that's limiting, but this is a hard amount of compression. It's a hard amount of control, reducing the dynamic range even more. And so let me talk about dynamic range real quick. I haven't mentioned dynamic range at all. So let me go back real quick, point out dynamic range, and then I'll come right back. So from the loudest portion of this audio to the lowest portion of this audio is the dynamic range. If I had a crown or something, I would draw it for you. But that is the dynamic range from the loudest to the lowest. And as compression compresses, depending on how fast it is, it will, if it's a fast attack, it's definitely going to squeeze this down, pushing this down until, and if none of this is passing the threshold, then it won't get compressed. but anything that's passing the threshold will be compressed. Everything else will remain the same, and everything else will get squashed, all right? And that gives you an effect of the other sounds getting louder or evening out your sound, okay? So let's go back real quick. One last thing I wanted to point out here, and that's this here. Sometimes it'd be a 20-to-1, but you can actually turn your compressor into a limiter. The compressor prevents the signal at this point from even passing the threshold. It's acting like a limiter. So it's pretty much just pushing things down, okay? And you're like, what? What's the difference? Well, the difference is with a compressor, things are able to pass the threshold. But with a limiter, things do not pass the threshold at all, okay? So that's the difference. They're not going to pass the threshold. It's not allowed to pass, all right? And then it act as a limiter. And that's the last point I wanted to make on here, okay? Hopefully you got that. If not, just rewind the tape. Just rewind the video and watch it again. All right, so I'm going to show you some of these other numbers, right? So I had a 2-to-1. I'll make this 3-to-1. Let's see what it does. And like I did on the slide, did you see that? Now we're at like a negative 7.2. That's where we were. At a 3, it was about at a 6 point something like that, about 7. So it's about right. It's about right. And as you continue to change the ratio, you'll see you'll get even more gain reduction. So right here, more gain reduction. Now, I'm going to take it all the way up right here. You see this line down here? That curve? Nothing's going to pass. Watch. This is your actual signal down here. It's not allowed to pass the threshold at all. So now this compressor is now acting like a limiter, okay? All right, so what type of compressor is this? Well, FabFilter, I don't believe they make emulation plugins, so it doesn't model any hardware. So, but in a nutshell, this would be a VCA type of compressor to me. And so with a VCA, there's several types, and I'll bring up some other VCAs. We got this one here, which has a VU type of meter instead of the digital meter. So you can actually see the gain reduction. But a VCA is designed to give you precise control with a wide range of compression parameters, making this compressor a jack of all trades, right? So basically what I'm saying is you can use this compressor on anything, just about anything, okay? And I guess you're saying you can use any compressor on anything. That's true. That's true. You can. You can. There's no rules to anything when it comes to mixing. You can use what you want to use. However, I'm telling you, based off of the setup of this compressor, the parameters that are available, that this compressor is an Army switch knife. It can be used for everything, all right? Because you can dial in the attack time. You can do all kinds of things with this, okay? So this is one compressor. If you don't have a compressor, a VCA would be a great compressor to have. There's others like it, and I'll show you a couple more. You got like, here's a DBX 160. Okay, same thing. I won't get into it too much. And also we have the SSL, okay? But let me go back to the API real quick. How do I like to use this? I like to use this on my mix bus, okay? I like to use this on my mix bus to add glue, okay? Not a whole lot of compression going on, just to add glue. Now I can use this on a drum bus and also a mix bus, okay? Because API is known for the punch, okay? The warmth and all that kind of stuff. So I like to use this on a mix bus, okay? Now the SSL G-Comp, well-known compressor. I love to use this on my drum bus. Now it can be used on other things too, because again, you got threshold, you got attack times, okay? You don't have a whole lot of ratios, but you do have some attack times and release times, okay? So you can kind of pretty much set this up to do what you want it to do. I like to use it on my drum bus. You know, you can use these things anywhere you want. Let me just say that. But I like to use this on my drum bus. I don't use it on vocals or anything like that, but on my drum bus, I like to use it. Then we go back right here. We got the 1176, okay? Very good compressor. So this is a field effect transistor. They call it a FET. All right, it's a compressor that offers even a faster attack time. And you go this way, 7 is fast and not 1, okay, on this compressor. All right, so release time, 7 is fast and not 1, okay, on this compressor. But this compressor here is even faster reaction than the VCA. All right, so it's good for adding aggressive sound and excitement to your vocals, to your drums, to your bass, to your guitars, and it's great for parallel compression, okay? If you're looking for transparency, this ain't the one you want to use, okay? But this is great parallel compression and so forth, just squashing things, bringing things forward. I love to use this on vocals. This is my go-to. I like to use a ratio of a 4:1 on vocals. And there's other ratios. I talk that after I get done going through what the various compressors are. All right, so here's a well-known compressor here. All right, is the optical, right? They call it leveling amplifier. This is modeled after LA2A and it's smooth, right? Pleasing compressor that is particularly used on vocals, but can be used on other sources, all right? It adds warmth to your signal. It adds a sheen and so forth to your signal. It can be used on vocals. Some people double stack, do the 1176. That is the effect type of compressor I just showed you. They'll double stack and then use the LA2A for tone reasons, okay? Because it gives you a great tone, okay? Gives you that warmth and that sheen on the vocal, right? It is also, I use it on bass sometimes. Just to give me smooth, you know, make things smooth and warm on the bass. But it can be used on guitars, bass, and other instruments without sounding, you know, your signal, making your signal sound squash. This is a great compressor, great compressor. All right, so let's move on to the variable MU compressor right here. So this is the manly type. It tells you right here, stereo variable MU limiter compressor, right? So this compressor here is based on a tube circuitry that produces a smooth, warm compression with a nice coloration, right? So this is, you know, used on your mix bus. I actually use this on vocals also, like on BVGs and stuff like that. So like I said, there's no set rule that you have to use this compressor just for this specific reason. There's no set rules, okay? None at all, all right? So this compressor, like I said, adds a nice coloration. It's warm, it adds color, it adds fatness to any source. You can use it for parallel processing. Also, let me see, does it have, yeah, see right here? It has a mix knob, right? So you can use it for parallel. You can put it right on a source and go 50-50 with this here and use it for parallel processing, okay? So it can be used for parallel processing as well. Use it on for adding glue to your mix on your mix bus or your master bus, whatever one you want to call it, mix master bus. So it can add glue on that and you can put it on various buses, you know, different buses to control and add glue to your different buses. But it can, like I said, be useful as a limiter, okay? So you can use it in your mastering chain as a limiter too, all right? So let's go and keep moving, trying to keep time down. All right, so here's a well-renowned compressor, the Fairchild, and there's other emulations out there or other manufacturers that make the Fairchild. This particular is my favorite, is UAD compressor, and I like to use this on piano. I mean, I do. I mean, but also it can be used on your mix bus, on your mastering bus to add warmth and glue to your signal source. This here as the same thing as that manly, but each one has a different characteristic. So it can give you that fatness and tone, that warmth, that glue. It can give you that color you're looking for. It can make your pianos. I like to use this on pianos, make your pianos jump out, but also vocals. This thing make your vocals pop forward, okay? So I'm just telling you what you can use it on, okay? That's my whole point here. So the next compressor I want to talk about is the multiband compressor. Right here is the Fab Filter Pro MB, one of my favorite multiband compressors to use. Very simple. And having a simple plugin is a plus because you're going to be able to maneuver this thing very easily. So the multi-band compressor is a compressor that targets specific frequencies within the frequency spectrum, okay? Basically to solve problems that you may have, to smooth out vocals that may get louder, may get lower on certain parts, and even when you may do a vocal at a different time, or you had mic proximity going on where the artist got closer to the mic and or got farther away from the mic, or whatever the case may be, this plugin can help keep the tone of the vocal the same as well. It's good for mastering to be used, and on the mix bus, like I say, a lot of people use these on vocals, of course. I sometimes use them on vocals. Not always the case, but sometimes I do use them on vocals. But these multi-band compressors are to solve problems within the different frequency ranges, okay? Specific problems you're trying to solve. You want to balance your frequency spectrum out a little bit more, use a multi-band compressor. If you want to smooth out the source, you can use a multi-band compressor. If you want to control sibilance, you can use a multi-band compressor. You want to control up here around, say, around that 4K area, whatever the case may be, you can do a bell instead of a low shelf to control the sibilance. Okay, you can control harshness in the nasal area, around the 1.3 kilohertz area, whatever the case may be. So multi-band compressors can do a lot of different things for you. It can do ducking of the bass. So you want to kick the punch through and shine, you can duck the bass by side chaining the multi-band compressor. As you can see here, we've already talked about a lot of the parameters that you see on a multi-band compressor. You got a threshold, you have a range. So let me see what band I'm on right now. Okay, I'm on this band here. So if I adjust the range, so basically that's how much ducking that's going to take place, or compression is going to take place on that frequency range when it surpasses the threshold. Remember, no compression is going to take place until the source surpasses the threshold, okay? Then you have your attack time, of course, how fast, as soon as it comes across the threshold, I want it to hit it, so I'll make a fast attack. If I want it to be subtle or whatever, I want to do a mild attack, slow attack, or whatever the case may be. Now, once my signal drops below the threshold, how fast do I want to release? Simple as that. Same theory as a regular compressor. You just got several other compressors controlling different bands within the frequency spectrum, okay? Now, you do have a knee on this one. You have a look ahead. So you have some other features on here that you have at your disposal. So multi-band compressor, again, use a compressor when you have a problem that needs to be solved, that this compressor needs to be utilized to solve the problem. Don't just use a multi-band because you've seen somebody else use it. Use it because there's something you're trying to target. You know, there's a frequency range you're targeting, or you're just trying to smooth out the entire vocal take itself, because there's so many highs and lows and dips in the vocal, whatever the case may be, and you're just trying to balance it out. So these are reasons that you want to use a multi-band. Or you might want to do some upward compression. You might want to give something here and boost this, but at the same time, control it, you know, as you're boosting it. So there's so many different ways you can use a multi-band compressor, okay? It's a Swiss Army knife, like I like to call different various compressors when they do a lot of different things, okay? So the next compressor I'll show you, let me activate it real quick, is a Dyne 1, because we talked about using it for parallel processing. This is my go-to for parallel processing when it comes to multi-band compressors. It's a Dyne 1 by Leap Wing. Very great plugin. And so right here, it's in the mode. It can be used just like a regular multi-band compressor. It can be used just like that by turning off the parallel mode. But I like to use it in parallel mode. You can use this on the drum bus to make your drums hit harder. Instead of doing individual compression to glue it together, I can use it on a drum bus to make my drums hit a lot harder. And then you can balance it out by the input and then how much reduction or threshold you're doing on each individual band, okay? So very great compressor. If you can afford to get it, great for parallel processing, okay? All right, so in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. So there's a lot of information here. Just got to rewind the video and take another look. There's a lot of information here. Now, as a seasoned mix engineer, we're not going to use like these mathematical equations and all that. We understand what each parameter does. We're going to dial it in. We know the various thresholds. I mean, not thresholds, excuse me, ratios we like to use on specific type of sources. For example, mix bus. I got external hardware here. I would use a 2-to-1 to a 2-to-1 ratio to a 4-to-1 ratio. On the kick drum, if you know, a 3-to-1 ratio. Snare, 3-to-1 ratio. On the vocals, from a 2-to-1 to 4-to-1 ratio. I like to use a 2-to-1 ratio on my CL1B going in. Well, it's about 2-to-1 to 3-to-1 ratio. And then I like to, in the box, use a 4-to-1 ratio. And then sometimes I'll use a 2-to-1, depending on the source, to try to just give it more tone, make it pop forward a little bit more in the mix. I may use a second compressor as to do that job. Down guitars and things like that, 4-to-1 ratio. Pianos, 4-to-1 ratio. Sometimes I don't even look at ratios. Sometimes I just know that if I put a compressor on this source, this is what it's going to do for me. Like the Fairchild, I like to use it on vocals. It makes your vocals pop forward, and you don't even have to do anything on it. Don't adjust anything. Just put it on there, and sometimes it'll just do what you want it to do. Piano, I think I already said that, but a 4-to-1 ratio. Bass, 6-to-1 ratio. Toms, 6-to-1 ratio. I mean, these are just general ratios. It's not set in stone that, oh yeah, this is a ratio I have to use or whatever. No. Bottom line is you got to use your ears and apply to the source what is needed. Always use your ears when it comes to this. But in this video, I just wanted to break it down to be simple, stupid, so that anybody can look at this and say, okay, that's a threshold. Okay, once the signal passes the threshold, this is what's happening. Okay, here's the ratio. How does that work? It works in conjunction with the threshold. Okay, they both work hand in hand. Okay, so that determines how much compression is going to be applied once it does pass the threshold. Okay, and I'm just going back over what I already talked about. And then the takt time. How fast is the compression going to be applied once it passes the threshold? How fast? How soon? You know, do I want to allow that initial transient to pass through? And if so, you might want to use a slower takt time. Release time. Once my signal drops below my threshold, how long do I want to hold it? You know, how much, you know, what's the compression time before I release that signal? And then, you know, we talk hard knee and soft knee very briefly. So in a nutshell, you have to use your ears. I gave you some ratios as a general rule of thumb. It's not in stone. Don't hold me to it. Use your ears. Use the appropriate compressors to do the job. I told you what various compressors are good for, like the 1176, the LA2A, definitely on vocals. 1176, definitely on vocals. If you want something to be aggressive sounding, then definitely use 1176. You got your jack of all trades, the VCA type of compressor, because it has all the parameters that you need to dial it in and make it fast, make it slow, make it smooth. You know, you may not get a bunch of coloration out of those, but they can work on everything. And also we talked about, what else did we talk about? The voltage control amplified, that was a VCA. We talked about the FET, that was 1176. We talked about the optical. We talked about the multiband and we talked about the variable MU compressors, which are the tube circuit, have the tube circuitry that can be used on the master bus. It can be used on mixed buses and individual buses as well. Okay, so we talked about a lot of things. So just take this video, rewind it, look at it, see what information has been put out, apply it to your mixing, and hopefully, you got a great understanding after watching this video. So check it out. I'm about to shut it down. I done talked enough today. So you know how it goes. This is Don T of Don T Records Music Group. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.